Om, 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 om. Oh, honestly unbalanced.
I was stalking you, as you do, and I found an article that you had amazingly 6,000 followers on social media. This was an article in the UK Daily Mail. Like it was like going back in time, and it's like, oh my god, she has 6,000 yoga followers on social media, and she's doing inversions not on a yoga mat, and it was like this world like amazing article. So well done. I just want to say it's a bit belated, but well done on getting 6,000 followers.
So first of all, that article is an article I always hope nobody will discover. And through this podcast, it's going to reemerge again. But yeah, that happened. That happened, and I don't know if it still says yoga fanatic does yoga in the streets of Vietnam, but that was the original title, and it was, yeah, a funny time in my yoga career.
It says that you created the phrase yoga off the mat.
Maybe she did.
I don't know. I've been like, that was kind of how I branded myself at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what I started to do as a form of creative expression, just taking pictures of yoga poses, which I found very aesthetically pleasing. And I like photography. I like creativity. So combining that with movement. And then at the time I lived in Vienna, and Vienna is basically like a Disneyland. It's just beautiful. So I would find different spots in the city, and then on my little tripod, take some photos.
Do you feel differently now about the way you take photos? Fast forward, however long ago that was. How many years ago?
That was 2016.
I thought you were going to say 20 years ago. I thought, God, how old is she?
Yeah, that was 20 years ago.
How have your feelings around...
Yoga is the fountain of youth.
What's your secret? Oh my God, yoga. How do you feel about taking photos now and the aesthetics of yoga? How have your feelings around that changed, if at all?
It has changed quite a lot. So I would say back then, I was more inspired to create content like that, to express myself creatively through yoga photography. And over time now, it shifted into more being focused on teaching yoga. So right now, I would say I enjoy taking photos here and there, spontaneously in the city, when there is a good friend. Usually I prefer taking photos with friends because I can relax nicely and it's just a fun hangout. So if that is the option, then I like to take creative yoga photos, but mostly at the moment, it's more functional, as a way of, I know that social media and being part of social media platforms is how a yoga teacher markets themselves. So I take it as that. It's still fun, but I would say back then it was more my passion. Now it's more focused on teaching yoga and organizing retreats and trainings.
Yeah, but I think what's good to see is how long you've been doing it for. In the, I with social media, I don't think social media makes someone a good teacher, but equally it doesn't make them a bad teacher. It's not related. It's not related things.
It's not related, exactly.
It's just one form of marketing, like flyers or videos or business cards. It's just another form of marketing. But it just shows that actually, people like you've put in a lot of hard work over many years. Like you started it, that article was 2016. I'm guessing you probably started it 2014. So not only have you been teaching yoga for a very long time, but actually you've been working hard. And, if you think every year how much time you put into social media, as in not being on it scrolling, but creating good quality content, that's really significant.
And connecting with the audience, building a community as well.
Like it's hard work. It's hard work, isn't it?
Yeah. And I always now, sorry, did you want to say something?
No, carry on.
Yeah, now that I teach teachers trainings, and many people also on social media ask me, how do I market myself? How do I find clients? And I always say, social media is one channel that is available to you. And if you wish to find and reach more people, you just need to put some work into it, or get some help from somebody, so that it's not all on you, because it's a process that also you need to learn. You need to find out what works, how to navigate in those waters. So, but it's a part of teachers' job if they wish to do it like that, if they want to be self-employed, because you can also be teaching at a yoga studio, and then the yoga studio finds clients for you if you're, that's what I did also for years at the beginning, teaching at studios, and they would take care of bringing the clients in. But then as I wanted to make myself more independent and wanted to teach and travel, then social media is, I think, a platform that, or a place that opens many doors.
I think
gives many opportunities.
I think to any teachers listening, especially newer teachers, I guess you have to ask yourself what you want to do with social media. Because if you want to teach in your community, like your local community, in a small suburb of Vienna, let's say, you don't need massive numbers. You just need to connect with the people that are likely to come to your class. The reason to get bigger numbers is either because you want to be an influencer, which might not be worth it, or because you want to, like you do, like internationally travel and captivate an audience all over the world. But the average yoga teacher doesn't need that, really. They just need to connect to their community, their local community. It all depends on context. Can you speak a little bit about how you've kind of adapted your social media? We'll just stay on that topic for a little bit longer, because it's changed a lot, hasn't it, in the last year? It used to be that you could put a photo on. Like, my strategy was I'd do a photo shoot every month or two, and then put them all on Dropbox and just sit on a toilet, pick a random photo out from some, because each shoot had 100 photos, and I just keep changing the shoot and just write something about asana or about philosophy or and then that would be it, and I'd get like 2,000 likes. And now
good times.
Now it's really hard. You have to be creating and filming, and videos do far better. And in fact, I put a photo on yesterday with actually some really lovely text, and it got maybe 400 likes. And but my followers keep going up. But in terms of likes, down. And so, what are your thoughts on how you've adapted?
It's changed over time. As more and more people join social media platforms, and also as the direction of each platform changes a little bit, because, for example, even Instagram was at the beginning photo sharing platform, then it wanted to be more like Musical.ly or TikTok or Snapchat or whatever else there was or is right now. It's changing, and things that worked back then don't work quite as much anymore. I noticed quite a big shift during COVID. More people were spending time online because that's how we were connecting with each other, since we were limited in the in-person contact with other people. And then after it got more free and everything went back to normal, so to say, people started using social media less and less, which that's at least how I feel. People spend less time there than they did during those 2 years. So on one hand, it's good. On the other hand, you as a creator have to be more creative, more creative and more flexible. It definitely is important to watch those trends. Yeah, if you wish to reach more people and be exposed to more people, then it is important or a good idea to watch the trends. And I also believe the second important part is having substantial build behind the social media presence, because you don't want to be just why are you influencing? What are you influencing? And as a yoga teacher, what is the core message that you wish to share? What do you have to lean against, if that makes sense? What is supporting that which you do? Because if it's just wanting to create nice content and reach people, then I think it can feel quite unsafe, because it's difficult to predict right now in which way it will go. But if you already have something that backs you up and has your back, whether it be clientele that you teach in person or projects that you run that are maybe connected to social media somehow, but not completely reliant on that. It's what is important.
Yeah, so
that's important. What I found out for myself.
And you did a lovely post recently about coming back to your why, and why things are important to you, and having a purpose and intention behind what you do. And I love everything to do with intention, and I find it so powerful, but I think a lot of people kind of skip that part out. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are about intention, how it can impact your yoga practice, but also your life as well.
Definitely. Very important to know why you're doing things. I found for myself that, especially after a couple of years of teaching yoga and being in the business, I got more oriented on where I was going and less focused on why I was choosing to pursue those goals or go in that direction. And then as things were shifting also on social media, but in my life and professionally as well, I noticed that it's just, I felt some blocks, some resistance. It just would not run smoothly, and I couldn't figure out why is it not going that way, because I was progressing personally, professionally at a certain pace for a certain amount of years, and suddenly it was hitting more of a rough patch. And thankfully I hit that rough patch, because I, through that, realized that I'm going somewhere, but I don't really know why I'm going there. And is it really where I want to go, or am I going there just because I've been going in that direction for some time? So that was last summer. It was my big rethinking moment, when I had to think a lot about my why and the purpose, and how I define success, not in terms of money, but I think everybody wants to be successful. You want to be, like, what does success mean? It has this positive charge, the word success. It means that you've been doing something in alignment with your values. It just feels like it's coming from a place of integrity, and it influences and impacts positively also the world around you. That is success. And I had to rethink my idea of success. How do I want to be successful? And why do I want to be successful in that way? And once I answered those questions for myself, and shifted and realigned some things, suddenly I knew that maybe I need to go a bit different way, but it felt like a more healthy place to be going from.
And
so love that. That's so beautifully articulated.
And is that when you moved? You moved country?
No, no. I moved countries. I think 2019. I moved from Vienna to Czech Republic. Okay. So this was, but it's every couple of years it comes. This needs to rethink the way you're doing things in life. But this was my latest, biggest mental shift, at least, and that was last summer. I was still in Prague at that time.
How did you process that? Like, I know you journal. Like, when you're making a change like that or evaluating, do you have a particular process you follow or questions you ask yourself?
It is important to ask myself questions, but I don't have specific questions. I ask myself this particular moment, or last summer, it was a lot about allowing myself to just hit the low point. So just not resisting going low in terms of my feelings and emotions, and accepting that I am not successful how I want it to be, and just being honest with myself in those moments. So that's the first part, just being completely honest and letting everything go through me, and letting myself go through everything that I'm going through, not resisting, not trying to be brave or be strong when I don't feel brave or strong, just fully honest with me. Like, now we are hitting a low spot, and that's fine, because there is something to learn from that spot as well. And then asking myself different questions. For me, what works the best is sitting in silence, like being without distractions. It doesn't have to be a meditation. It can be a walk in the forest, but without a phone and without music and without podcast even. Just me and myself and my thoughts. And when there is nowhere to run in my head, then usually I can meet myself at a more personal level. And then the questions I should be asking myself come. A lot of crying and journaling, also a part of it. As I said, being honest with yourself and allowing yourself to go through everything. And then it goes up from there.
I love what you said then about the running, when you don't let your mind run anywhere. And that's so important for people. I think we've got so many ways to distract ourselves, haven't we? Phones, computers, be a podcast, music. There's even our watches now can distract us. And I've got an Apple Watch and I love it. But if I'm bored, I can just check emails, even if I'm like in the swimming pool. But having that time where there are no distractions, that's really uncomfortable for people. Like, I don't know if you've noticed in a yoga class, but like Shavasana can be hard, especially at the end of class for some people. But Shavasana at the beginning, like if you begin in a Shavasana, that's really, really challenging for a lot of people because they're not physically prepared to be still, and they've just come in from like the busy London streets, and being still, even for 3 minutes, feels so unnatural, doesn't it?
Yeah. Especially people living in cities. Recently, I've been learning more about different yogic philosophy principles and thinking more about the 3 gunas. For listeners who don't know what gunas are, it is a concept of 3 different qualities that everything has. And there is one quality, tamas, which is the slow, lethargic one. Then rajas, which is the New York Stock Exchange type of vibe. And then there is the sattvic quality, which could be a library, for example, something peaceful, or a peaceful yoga studio. And when you are... And I started observing these 3 gunas, these 3 qualities in my life. And through the music I listen to, through the even people I surround myself with, through the environment that I stay in, and I live in a city, through the movies I watch, through the pace of my days, there's so much activation going. So for me, actually, Shavasana also is really hard. And now that you said that you would do it at the beginning of the class, I was like, that must be challenging. I think I would just be twitching the entire time and shifting, because it is hard when we have complete opposite surrounding us and impacting us on an everyday basis for most of the day.
And coming back to...
You live in the...
Go on. Sorry. No, carry on. If you were still talking, go for it.
Okay. Do you live in London, the city?
We did, and we chose to move to the country, which is near my parents, and a lot more greenery around. Yeah, feeling a lot more peaceful, which is lovely. But just coming back to what you were saying about journaling, because I know you've actually written a book, Date with Yourself. Is that what it's called? And it's essentially a journal that people can follow with guides and inspiration and journal themselves. So I'd love to know about your journaling journey, I suppose, because I've sort of dipped in and out of it, but I do find it such a powerful way to connect with myself. And you said something so beautiful about how you've used it as a tool to connect with your past self, but also create your future self. And I thought that's so beautiful because it's also about sort of manifesting and stepping into who you want to become and what you want to create. So I'd love it if you could just talk a little bit about your journey with journaling and what it means to you. Yeah, thank you.
Journaling, I would try to do it since I was little, because it was cool keeping a journal. I heard many of my friends telling me about how they write their journal, and I would try to do it in the evening, and I would just never be able to stick to that practice. So eventually I just gave up on it and abandoned it. At that time, I would just want to journal about how my day went, because I thought that's what you're supposed to do in a journal, just write down everything that happened. And then fast forward, I don't know, 10 years later, I was going through a period. That's when also my yoga practice started being more important for me. But I was going through a period where it was challenging for me to stay grounded. I was all over the place in my head, very scattered thoughts. Anxieties were coming up, problems with sleep, insomnia. And part of the practices I did that helped me to find my way back to myself and to clean up the mind space, because meditation was extremely hard. I couldn't just sit and try to focus on one thing because the mind was so fast and so all over. So I began to write, and it didn't have beginning or an end. It was just what was going through my head at the time. And since my thoughts were focused on what I was writing, I had to think slower than I usually think. I could only think as fast as I can write. So that's how it all started. I noticed how it's like cleaning my head, tidying up my head space, my mental space. And for a couple of years, I would just do that. It was not something I had to do in the evening to mark what happened on the day, but it was practice that I knew helped me to slow down my mind and to understand better what is going on within the head. And so that was more acute way of journaling being a help in states when you need to be helped. And then I found out that it can also be used as a tool for creation of my future self, the self I want to become. And getting more into manifesting and visualizing and just making abstract ideas more tangible. Yeah, you can imagine yourself being in a certain way, or you can start to describe it and write down on paper how you want to evolve, how you want to grow. And then it's one step closer to being tangible. So it can be a very nice way of manifesting, bringing into material form that which normally just an abstract concept. And then, of course, understanding your past self. So I journal in combination with therapy. I go to therapists on a regular basis, and journaling is a practice that helps me to process things between the sessions, or even dig deeper in a more organized way. Because even when you're thinking about the past, it can be all blurry and mixed up and difficult to understand. So journaling helps to have things more organized. And when things are more organized, you can understand them better. And then for me, it's important to have understanding of myself so that I can accept some things.
Just a quick practical one, because I have so many journals over the years that just sat, under the bed. And I think, one day I'll go back and read them all. Do you keep all of your journals, or do you throw them away?
I do keep them, but I don't really read them.
Yeah.
I think what was written just had to be written down. It had to be expressed. Maybe at some point I will read them, but I cringe a little when I read them.
Or just have the big bonfire, a burning ceremony.
But I don't know. For some reason, I'm still keeping them, and I keep moving quite a lot. And always there's a whole box of books and journals.
I imagine, and I don't know this, but I imagine if when you're writing a journal, if you were thinking that you would read it in the future, you would write things down in a very different way to what you would if you wanted to get things off your chest. And I think potentially the value of journaling is the act of just expressing your thoughts on paper, not actually needing to ever reflect on those words again. I think that's probably the power.
Would you throw yours away?
And I just thought, just thinking out loud, I loved at the beginning you said all of your friends were journaling and it was cool. I think boys are so different.
Yeah, boys are
I never heard of any boy journaling or doing a diary. It was not a cool thing but even now though, I don't know. The only men that I know that journal, I say that, and actually one of my favourite men ever, Marcus Aurelius, wrote a journal, to a degree. But typically, most men I know don't write journals. And if they do, it's often like the 5-bullet journal, which is more like a practical productivity tool to push yourself forward in a commercial sense. And I wonder, if Putin wrote a journal,
oh my God,
would things be different now? If
men would journal.
Well, if men, and particularly men like Putin, if he had a journaling practice, would the world be in a different place?
Oh my goodness!
Can you repeat the last question? I didn't catch for a bit.
Oh, it was more just if someone like Vladimir Putin journaled.
Oh, Putin.
Yes,
Okay, I didn't get the name.
the accent is the Birmingham accent.
Yeah.
Would the world be in a different place?
It would very much be a different place.
If you had a gratitude
But
practice.
I like that you brought it up, men and journaling, because it's thought to be a very feminine practice. It has this girly vibe, I would even say. But I'm finding more and more people, more and more men, starting to practice journaling as well. Most of them, I must say, are from yoga / self-development / spiritual community, but some are coming from a very practical place, like my brother, for example, who is not a yoga practitioner or in this community, let's say, but he found out that it is important for him to have a journal. It is more structured and practical, like you said, but also I know that they create space for emotions within their journal as well. So not just organizing their life, but reflecting on how they felt. And that is a very important place, I think.
I think if
to get more in touch with emotions.
If the average man started one, I think it could develop into that. I think initially it would be just, I hate my boss.
Yeah.
Jack is an asshole, and that would just be it. That would be the joke. But I think over time, that like Jack is an arsehole would be Jack is an arsehole because he didn't respect my development as a human being. It would develop.
Yeah.
So I think even if, to all men out there, even if your journaling starts off with a list of people you hate and people you fancy, then it may develop over time into something more productive.
It's just to start. Just like with yoga practice, you start for whatever reason. You want to be more fit, or you want to learn a cool pose, or you want to do whatever. But I believe that over time, whether you want it or not, the deeper aspects of practice are going to get to you and impact you.
Let's talk to that a little bit, because I completely agree with that. And I think whatever you start doing yoga for, if you do yoga solely because you want to do a handstand, that's fine. And if you journal because you want to make a list of the people you hate, that's fine. But as you say, the practice takes over at some point. The journaling practice takes over, and suddenly you're writing deep thoughts. Or the yoga practice takes over, and suddenly you are having a deep experience of self-inquiry and don't really care about the handstands anymore. So let's talk about how has your practice evolved, because you've got massive range of motion, strength, and you've done yoga for a long time, but did that come also from a background in gym or dance, or was it just through long-term yoga?
So most of the flexibility came from yoga practice, and also from my passion for contortion. So, but about it later. I come from a very sporty family. I used to be a tennis player for 10 years. So for me, challenging my body physically to a big extent is something I'm used to. I've been doing it since I was 5. So physical challenge is something I like. And that's also what I looked for in yoga practice at the beginning, just exploring what the body can do. And I find it fascinating, and I find it a wonderful tool for self-development as well, because when you overcome yourself, when you overcome your limitations on physical level, it opens the doors to overcoming yourself and your limitations on a more personal level or a mind level. So that was my practice at the beginning. Lots of, just fascination with advanced asanas, which I still to this day portray on my Instagram channel. It is fun. I love that practice. I think it, that's what I like to show people as a teacher, that they can do more than they think they can do. It is possible. And over time it shifted more into
Well, it's just one thing on the advanced asanas, just because I think sometimes people get negative reaction to doing advanced asanas, and I don't think that's fair. Like, my view is that, of course, if someone who hasn't got a skillful practice tries to replicate those poses, they might hurt themselves. Okay, like if you try to replicate some of the things Dylan Werner does, and you didn't really know what you were doing, you'd probably hurt yourself. But it's the same with any movement. If I tried to do a backflip that a dancer did, I'd probably hurt myself. If I tried to do a skateboarding stunt that I saw, I'd probably hurt myself. If I tried to do the 100-meter hurdles, I'd probably hurt myself, you know. And I think that's the case with everything. And I think if your unique body can do those things in a safe way for you, that is absolutely fine. And that's cool. And it's nice to look at, and those shapes are cool and aesthetic, and some people might be inspired to get into the mat for the very first time because of those shapes. So I just wanted to say that about advanced poses. I think sometimes they get, people are critical, and I think that's unfair.
And I also really love what you were saying, because I've not really thought about it in this way before, that you can use your body and the asanas that you can create so beautifully to show people what they can do internally as well, with their mind. And I've actually never thought of it that way, bizarrely, because it seems so obvious now that you say it. So that was really interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I agree with you, Adam, on what you said. I think when advanced asanas are being judged, they're being taken out of context. You know, it's just taking things out of context and judging it as, I don't know, it just doesn't have the full view of the whole thing. And I think that happens more on social media. It doesn't happen quite as much in yoga classes and in workshops. Even if I introduce an advanced asana and we work on it together with people, if it's introduced as a step-by-step thing that we're working towards, and there is no need for perfection, etc., then it's more accepted. But then when it's just an advanced asana on Instagram, then it's not yoga. And I'm over that. I'm over that. Like, yes, people are judging it, but what I think is just taking things out of context. Of course, like there is so much to yoga. So this is not the only way to practice yoga. It can be yoga. It doesn't have to be yoga. It depends on the intention of the practitioner, how and why they are doing it.
Do you get much judgment, backlash on social media? And if you do, how do you manage that?
I must say, I have a very amazing community on Instagram. So there is not much judgment, not much backlash. There is every now and then a person coming to me through DMs or through comments, pointing out that I am not presenting yoga the way that yoga really is, and that I'm not a real practitioner and just a flexible girl, etc. But mostly, if when I receive some criticism, 90% of the time it's a constructive criticism. And there were many instances during the past 7 or 8 years on Instagram especially when I share through Instagram stories and I dive deeper into the topics, that people show me what I don't see. And that is good. Although it can be a little, hurtful for the ego, because there is a tendency to think that when you, as a person with big social media following and associating myself as a yoga teacher or describing myself as a yoga teacher, if I talk about some topics, I should be the expert. But it's important for me to remember that, yes, while I can be the expert, I can also be a student. And I don't have to be perfect.
Love that.
And then it's good. If I don't get attached to being perfect and I allow myself to make mistakes, then it's okay. And
That's
works.
the yoga practice right there, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think
Took time.
Yeah. And there's all that difference between constructive criticism and just being not that nice.
Being an arsehole.
And my strategy is just block people. I've blocked so many people.
Yeah.
Delete.
Yeah. But it's also what I do. Like, if somebody's just being an asshole, then I'm like, okay, bye. Like, if you're gonna slide into my DMs and tell me that my yoga practice is all about cute yoga pants and working my butt, then okay, bye. I don't need you in the community.
Because you do get that a lot, that people say, this is obviously asana isn't the only pathway of yoga. As you've said, there's many pathways of yoga, but most people in the West choose asana because it's quite accessible. Like, meditation is really unfamiliar. Kirtan is like, what is that? People get confused by kirtan. But yoga, asana, is accessible. So that's a vehicle we use. But people say that flexible person, that's not true yoga. But yeah, I follow and I'm followed by so many accounts in India, and they're so flexible. And there are so many kind of extreme poses. The only difference is the brand wearing isn't Lululemon. That's the only difference. It's still full of bendy poses and big assists and legs behind the head and ankles everywhere and yoga competitions and yoga champions. There is all of that in all of the world. It's not just the West where there is extreme flexibility.
Absolutely.
You say about surrounding yourself with positive people, positive influences, and something, you know, that is difficult for people is having people in their lives that are draining on the energy. And, you know, that could be maybe a friendship that isn't aligning anymore and you're clearly going in very different directions. And every time you meet up, maybe it's all about them and it's, you know, it's draining on your energy. So I think most people probably have people like that in their lives. So what would be your kind of tactic to cutting them out, as it were, in a kind of ahimsic way?
And can you name examples?
Yes, give all of your examples.
For example, I must say I'm still learning that. My tendency is to be more accept, forgive, and please everybody. So I'm learning to set boundaries, and I'm learning to be more selective with who I let into my field, and also learning to disappoint people and make people angry. I think that is a very important thing that helped me on this path, like being able to disappoint people without disappointing myself or without being mad at myself for disappointing people. And also making people angry, and not in a way where you would on purpose want to irritate somebody because you want to screw up their day, but just allowing yourself to be in a conflict with a lot of integrity, because you know you're standing up for yourself and for your values, for something you believe in. You're protecting yourself. So that would be some points. Practicing having uncomfortable conversations. That is another big practice I've been learning throughout my 20s, because it is easier for me to run away from that which is uncomfortable. And instead of setting a boundary with somebody and telling them maybe how their behavior is impacting you, I would rather ghost them. Not an adult way of dealing with things, but through little steps, learning to have uncomfortable conversations with those around me, with relationships that are maybe not as close, but somewhat close. That's a good practice ground. Start practicing setting boundaries with people that are not as close to you, but are in your everyday life. And then for me, most challenging is doing that within the family or with the closest friends and with the, with the closest people, sharing the uncomfortable things, setting the boundary, and wanting to, knowing that it is my responsibility to stand up for myself, and it is not my responsibility to take care of somebody's emotions. Of course, you want to communicate non-violently. Book recommendation, Nonviolent Communication, really good book.
Oh, thank you.
If you want to learn more about that. But yeah, without being a jerk, say what you need to say, and no, it's not your responsibility to deal, or not to be. Yeah, you're not responsible for other people's emotions. They are grown-ups as well.
And you give them permission then, I guess, to have boundaries themselves. And also, I think when you're making someone else angry, you're kind of holding up a mirror and giving them an opportunity to see sort of, oh, why am I being triggered by that? What needs to heal within me? Why am I getting so upset about that? I mean, maybe they're not on the path at all and that won't land with them. But
it made me just think of breakups. And let me just reverse back slightly. I think everyone in the modern world wants to be liked most of the time. And maybe with social media and the validation and the dopamine hits we get with the likes there, we apply that to our actual life. And we just want to be liked and want to please everyone. And we don't let people be angry at us, as you said. And that really applies to breakups a lot. Like yogis are really bad at breakups because they want to break up with someone, but equally want to be friends with them and want to be nice to them. And that makes breakups so harder. So it's so much harder. And I think it's actually, you are letting someone be free and letting yourself be free if you let that person be angry at you. Because then you're not making false promises all the time or making promises actually you don't want to keep. And then they're also free to not like you and then move on with their life and find other friends that they resonate with and find other friends where then you're not a burden to them, etc. Or other relationships.
Oh.
Yeah, agree with it. I think it goes hand in hand with just accepting also the negative, like, and knowing not everything has to be all the time good.
Yes,
it is
absolutely.
It is fine for.
And we're not taught that, are we, in schools?
For some time, and maybe it will get better through that, and maybe it will not. What did you say?
How do you manage student-teacher relationship? Because I guess it might be harder for you because you're like a traveling teacher, so you're likely to like live with lots of your students, like on retreat centers, etc. They're more likely to, get to sit with you at meals, compared to, let's say, a teacher who just teaches in studios mainly. Like for me, even, although I do retreats and trainings, etc., a lot of my interaction with students is very much, I'll see them in a class. Maybe I say hello to them, depending on how busy the class is. Maybe I say goodbye to them. Maybe I don't speak to them at all. But that's a relationship I have. So it's quite easy to have that student-teacher separation and boundary, and like the moustache helps, and the scary and the slightly scary face and heavy eyebrows kind of help. Like no one comes and hugs me at the end of class and says thank you. So like how do you manage that student-teacher relationship and not let the lines blur?
Again, I would say boundaries. Having the boundaries clear within myself. For me, a big learning curve was and still is with retreats, where I feel like mama bear, taking care of everybody, and knowing that my role ends at a certain point and it doesn't go beyond that. Like, they're still their own people, they're adults. All of them are adults. They're just fine taking care of themselves. I don't need to do everything for them. So realizing that and letting myself know that it is fine to set a boundary. So I even communicate with students how and when they can come to me and talk to me. For example, if there's a free time in a retreat, let's say 3-4 hours in the afternoon, I usually like to have that time for myself if I'm the solo facilitator of the retreat. And I know the rest of the day I'm there for the people. So I tell them, during this period, I'm probably going to be in my room, or I'll go for a walk. And unless it's really something important, don't talk to me. And if it's communicated like that, people are fine, are just fine with that. And then knowing what things they can deal with you or talk to you about, and what things should be directed to somebody else. So I'm there for the yoga, for the program, and for some personal, if somebody wants to have a personal exchange, also very open to that, because I like to connect with people. But if it's about a missing toilet paper, then it's not my responsibility, like knowing like this is your responsibility, that is not your responsibility. So that really helps, setting boundaries. And then also having it figured out within myself. So if I come to a class or to a retreat from a place of wanting to be liked and approved of everybody and wanting to figure out everybody's life problems and save everybody, I think it just emanates a different energy than when I come there and I know where my role starts and where it ends. Like, this is what I'm here for. And also then because sometimes people start confusing yoga teachers for their therapists. So just also knowing like when to listen. Like, of course, I want to hold space for you. I want to listen because I care about you. But if I see, and when I see that it is going beyond a certain level, certain point, just being ready to refer people to, let's say, a therapist. And instead of me trying to give them life advice where I'm not qualified to give them advice. Yeah.
How
do you do it?
Well, yeah, we were on a retreat recently, and the rule was if I'm in the sauna, don't talk to me. Basically, that's my special
the only
place.
boundary.
Yeah.
If I'm in the sauna, do not even make eye contact. But sometimes it's like if I'm doing mentor programs, it will be a case of you can email me, but maximum like 2 sentences at times, unless it's like a formal chat. Like you can't send me an essay. That's one way I manage boundaries. Is you can ask me questions, but 2 sentences.
And you tell people that.
More or less, yeah. Like because I just don't have the space to manage. But like,
yeah, of course.
And we have designated calls where we can chat about long topics. But I'm not there to answer big essays all the time. You know, that's one way I set boundaries. I guess another one is like I'm quite guilty of asking questions all the time. Like if I'm in a taxi, like I'll know the taxi driver's life story within 60 minutes.
It's like interrogation.
Yeah. So Holly falls asleep, I ask questions. But I've learned to not do that on retreats, because on retreats, if someone opens up to you and you get into that habit of asking questions, sometimes suddenly you're allowing someone to open up more and more and more and more, and that's not the right context for that. So I think it's, if someone says to me, oh, well, this happened today, something bad, I'm like, oh, that's sad, and then I just walk up rather than be like, oh, tell me about it, how did it make you feel? So I think as yoga teachers or space holders, it is important to be careful with the questions or follow-ups you choose to ask, and be prepared for the consequences if you ask certain questions. If someone if someone says to you, I've had a bit of a hard breakup and my family don't like them, don't ask how their childhood was. Because then you're going to go down. It's going to
be a rabbit hole.
Yeah, you're going to go down. We are almost out of time, so let's do a few little quick fires, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Little quick fires. I saw on your lovely Instagram that you run a Wisdom Wednesday session where you share inspirational quotes, mantras, wisdom of the week. Would you mind sharing this week's with us, if you can remember?
That was from Mandala Yoga Wear that I work currently with. I would have to remember what exactly they said, but I know it was a quote by Brené Brown. It was a quote by Brené Brown.
I can get it up if that helps you.
Yes, please.
Because I read it and I thought, oh, that's on the mark. Hang on, let's get it up.
I did not come up with those. It's Mandala.
Sarah. Here we go. So, Brené Brown. I love Brené Brown. So much wisdom.
Yeah.
She says, oh no, it's disappeared. Oh, here we go. The willingness to show up changes us. It makes us a little braver each time. Lovely.
Yep.
Thank you, Brené.
Next.
Agreed. What she said.
What is a practice beyond yoga that grounds you and brings you home?
Cooking.
Ooh, cooking what?
Yeah.
Favorite dish?
Whatever porridge, like whatever from the scratch, and whatever, just creating that environment in my kitchen where I'm not cooking for the functionally, like I need to eat now, so I cook, but more I'm taking this time to touch the ingredients, to mix the ingredients, and to connect through all of my senses with the process of creating food.
Do you host dinner parties?
Sometimes small ones. My roommate and her boyfriend and my boyfriend hang out, or not big dinner parties, but I like to cook.
Nice. I see you've got that typical European flat with a really high ceiling.
Yeah.
I'm jealous of that. I can't do handstands in our house.
Really?
We've got dirty ceilings.
Yeah, little ceilings.
Footprints.
Yeah, this is an old apartment.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think that's it. I think just tell us now about anything you have, where to find you, and what you have on offer in the next little while.
So you can find me on Instagram. That is a nice place. But also on my website, Sarah Ticha, SARATACHA.
Stop there. You said I didn't know how to say your name. Say your surname one more time. I was like, Ticha? Say it again.
So originally it would be Ticha. That's how I would pronounce it in Czech Republic or Slovakia, Ticha. Which actually means silent. They're silent.
Oh, right.
So Ticha, but Tisha, teacher.
You've had to let go.
all are good. It's like, So, but originally it's Sarah Ticha. That's how my name sounds in my
Saratika.
country. But yes, Saratika. And on my website, you can find everything that I offer. So I have an online platform and an app where you can practice with me. There are on-demand classes, there are live stream classes every week. There's an online course. I have teachers trainings focused more on continuing education trainings, or also 200-hour foundational teacher training. I host them throughout the year within Europe. Usually 5-day long or so, and they are my favorite experiences, are my favorite things to do. I host retreats. There's going to be one retreat this year in Ibiza, and other than that, I have a newsletter, and I'm really passionate about writing, and writing a newsletter is possibly the highlight of my week always. So if you wish, you can sign up for my newsletter. It comes out every Monday. You can sign up through my website, and it's, I think, especially valuable for yoga teachers or for serious yoga practitioners, because I get a little bit deeper into a different topic each time. So I think that's where you can find me. And on your podcast now.
Amazing.
Honestly Unbalanced.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Honestly Unbalanced.